For this week's furniture makeover, we're working on this beautiful dresser. Zeb has a little bit of repair to do in it, just a little bit.
A lot of bit of repair.
While he's doing the repair, I'm gonna go shop for some new knobs, and then we're gonna come back and give it an amazing paint job and get it ready for the shop.
When we got the piece, it didn't have a backer on it. That's why the strap is on here. It's holding this thing together because the back actually adds a lot of strength. Working out in the lovely snow today, right here on the back porch at the shop. So with the drawers pulled out and without its backer on, it's got this fun kind of weeble wobble to it. We're going to take a lot of that out with the backer, but some of that we'll have to go in and reinforce with some glue and some new screws. These holes are looking like they're a little wallered out, so I'm just gonna put some Gorilla Construction adhesive right down in there. I was all ready to make this piece here out of the CNC so we could match, but we opened up the drawer and it's in there. It's got this fun scroll-like detail right here, but it's missing it. It's broken off on this drawer and then over here on this drawer. So to make the mold, we're using the amazing mold putty. It's essentially a two-part silicone and it's food safe. You can cook these up to 300 degrees, I believe. So to make the mold, I'm gonna take 2 equal portions, roll them into little balls here. Just checking to make sure they're pretty close to same size. And then you combine them, and you wanna combine them really well. You want all the white streaks out, so when you're done mixing it, the whole thing will be a solid yellow color. Once it's mixed up, you've got about 2 minutes to get it on your piece. I'm just gonna roll this out like a snake and mush it on there. And then I'm gonna roll it over the edge too, that way my mold has a cap. I'm just gonna press down pretty firmly so that the putty molds to all those details. Then I'm just gonna take my mat and I'm gonna press it on the top so that it's nice and flat. That way when I go to pour it with the resin, it doesn't wanna run out all over the place, hopefully. That's the hope. On these top drawers, the veneer is coming off, and the reason it's coming off is because this corner has been broken out. I'm gonna be using all-purpose Bondo. You wanna use it in a well-ventilated area. Got a window thrown open here. It does smell a little bit, it's got a strong odor. So with Bondo, I usually like to leave it a little proud and then I sand to shape. See what our mold looks like. It's been curing about 10-15 minutes. So you can see over to the side, I've got these IOD molds, the gray molds. If you didn't have something to already mold, they are great for doing this kind of detail if you want to add some embellishments to your own dresser if it doesn't have things like this already. When you first take them out of the mold, you can move them around. In about an hour, it's gonna set up hard like plastic and it'll be real rigid. If you bend it like that, it'll break it. So if you want it to be flexible around corners or round objects, you gotta kind of hurry and use it fast.
So I know a lot of you are gonna say, why didn't you just polish this piece? Aside from all the repairs that we had to make, which would have been super time consuming with hand carving details and veneer, this finish is not just a, hey, let's put some polish on it and make it beautiful. It's toast. Like, this is all over the place. Where the finish is gone, there's rings. Whoever stained it before did a really bad job. This is stained, just kind of splattered and hanging off all over the place. It would need to be completely stripped, veneer replaced, carved pieces done, and then stained, which you can still do after it's been painted. So no harm, no foul. We're just gonna make it pretty the way that it is. Using the Dark and Decrepit to go over the places where we've had to sand it. It's not gonna be an exact match, but it'll cover up those light areas. And then when I go and distress it, it won't be Bondo showing through. I'm also gonna go over this little,
some sort of covering or something.
Yeah, this dark area that it's been worn. Looks like somebody chewed this, I don't know. Next, I'm gonna go over this molded piece because I'm probably gonna wet distress over my detail. And so I'm just gonna make it dark. Dark and Decrepit has a built-in sealer, so if you wet distress down to it, you'll just see the dark parts. I want a really soft look on this piece, so I'm using Sweet Pickins and Haberdash. All of the ornate detail will be done in DIY's White Swan. 1 part milk paint to 1 part water. I'm just using this cup to measure it out. I'm gonna be adding Sweet Pickins Extra Bond. I'm just doing a splash. You're supposed to do 2 parts paint to 1 part bond for full coverage, but I don't mind if it chips a little bit. I'm getting down into all this detail here. I'm not worried about perfection because we're gonna come back and paint the top part white.
This is where a smaller brush like the French round comes into place.
Getting down all the details. All right, now I'm out of your way.
All right, so we leave the drawers in. We do not paint the sides of them, especially on these old dressers. It usually makes them slide really badly, and you got to do a lot of sanding and pull all the paint off the sides anyway. So we just leave them in and just take like a putty knife or something, pop them out. It's pretty easy, and then sand any excess just around the lip if we have issues with that. But we like to leave them in because it sits in flush. Now, if it were to come out over the top of this, we would pull them out and paint everything and do it that way. But when they're flush like this and they sit recessed back in, we leave them in.
All right, we're starting up with coat number 2. Just kind of hitting everywhere where it's a little bit thin. We got pretty good coverage with that first coat. The second coat is gonna fill in the gaps. So we need just a little bit more Haberdash. Rather than open up another pint, we are just using a sample, mixing it up the same as we did before, 1 part paint to 1 part water. We're gonna be using DIY White Swan to do the detail because it's pretty thick, so we'll be able to cover it in about 1 coat.
Hey, you slopped.
Oops, don't do that. So I'm coming in with my little Frenchie. Zeb's gonna come in and do that side, and I'm just painting over the detail. And I have a little bit of the Haberdash left, so like there I messed up a little bit. I'll just come back in with an artist brush and touch up anywhere.
Well, and we're gonna white wax it too, so that should help any mishaps blend right on in.
Well, also I'm reaching pretty far to paint this. I'm gonna let you do that. I'm gonna work over here.
So this brush here is the JRV number 12 Stencil Brush, and I'm just using it to get these dots. There's going to be a fun clear knob right here that'll look real good with the rest of these details. We woke up this morning and we had a little bit of chipping. You can see down here quite a bit chipped off. Jami's got a stiff bristle brush. She's just gonna go over and get any excess loose stuff, and I'm gonna sand the flat areas, and hopefully we can kind of make it match a little closer.
I'm gonna see if I can coerce any chipping.
You gonna try to reactivate it?
Well, yeah, because we got a lot of chipping on the bottom. It's like bottom heavy, kind of like me. So I'm trying to see if I can get it to chip a little bit more. Sometimes this makes it bad, sometimes it's good. You just never know.
Yeah, well, let's hope.
Let's hope we're good.
For the painted in drawers, they were a little stuck shut, so I just took a screwdriver and just ran it around in through there along all the edges. Butter knife works if you've got an old one laying around the house, and that just comes right on out. And Jami's gonna sand these edges right here, get them nice and smooth, and then we don't have to like sand all this or worry about taping it off or anything like that.
We're gonna clear wax this piece, although my brush already has a little white wax on it because that's what it was used for before. And then we're gonna come back and add some white wax to it.
And then after that, we're gonna buff it. We're not gonna wait for it to dry because we like to pull more of the white wax off. If you let it dry overnight, you won't be able to pull as much off.
The good news is that anybody that wanted us to leave some of the original finish, they're gonna get it. It chipped right through.
I don't feel bad at all. It had already been painted green and gold at some point.
Oh gosh, the green is like avocado green too. It didn't really show up much in the picture, but it was pretty bad. Well, as that finishes up clear waxing the legs, I'm gonna come through with some white wax, and I'm gonna do what I like to call a halo effect, and I'm just gonna kind of hit all the edges. And then we'll come back, buff it in, and blend it.
This is just a dry, lint-free rag, and I'm gonna start pulling back that excess white wax and just letting that sit down in the crevices and the cracks, and it'll also catch anywhere the paint is chipped and sit down in there too.
Now we're adding the hardware. It came from Hobby Lobby. I went with some long dangly pulls for these pretty drawers on the side, and then just some clear oval pulls for all the rest of the drawers. This piece was totally inspired by a lot of the furniture finishes that we saw while we were in France. If you're interested in getting the same paint and products that we used, go to JamiRayVintage.com. Be sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to Jami Ray Vintage for more
DIY.
Hit the subscribe button.